just like with homeschooling, we sit back and we're like, well, I could never homeschool my kids. No, you're right. You can't homeschool your kids. You need God to help you get through this journey of homeschooling, of parenting, of being a wife and a mom, of all the things that we do in our lives. We need God's strength and his wisdom and his discernment and his power and his equipping. We need him to help us do everything to his glory. And it's no different with this movie. Hey, everyone. This is Yvette Hampton. Welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked Podcast. I am back with Aby Rinella today, and I literally cannot tell you how excited I am for this episode. It is one of the episodes we have been looking forward to and waiting for a really long time. I want to say for years, literally probably for years. Actually, I could say we've been leading towards this one. And today we are going to talk about the movie Schoolhouse Rocked. Oh my goodness. So here's where we are at with it. I actually, you have heard me say the last couple of weeks on the podcast that we're getting ready to do some test screenings for the movie. And we're still going to continue those over the next few weeks. So if you're listening to this, make sure you are signed up for the Schoolhouse Rocked newsletter, because if you want to be part of that, you need to be in the loop on how people are getting a chance to do that. But kind of what we've done over the last couple of weeks is we have been showing it to just our really like immediate family and team, and just saying, okay, we need you guys to watch this and give us feedback on the movie. If anyone is listening to this podcast, let me back up. If you're listening and you thought Schoolhouse Rocked was just a podcast or just a social media page or just a blog, which we haven't been blogging very much lately, but and you did not know that there was a forthcoming movie actually called Schoolhouse Rocked, the Homeschool Revolution. Well, this is big and exciting news.
That's how this whole thing got started.
Yes, that's how this whole thing got started, was by a movie. And we'll talk a little bit about that later.
Yeah.
But Aby, you got to watch the movie a couple of days ago. And you were one of the very first people actually to see the full movie, one of the test screenings of the movie. And this is so fun because you and I have actually not talked. You were out of town and came back in. It's been a crazy week. And so we actually haven't talked about...
I have not talked to you until right now about this.
And we didn't even talk before. So this is completely raw. So
totally raw.
It might be kind of scary because you might be like, it was horrible. No, I hated it. Don't send this movie out to anybody.
No,
which I know that's not how you felt, but
not at all. But it is like, this is our first, like, everybody gets to hear me give you feedback, basically, is what we're doing. And it's right. This whole thing is crazy exciting because, like you said, the Schoolhouse Rocked started as the vision, the calling that the Lord put on your family's heart to make a movie. And then he just morphed that into so much more, a full ministry where now it is a podcast. So I would say a lot of people might not even know that there's a movie. And I tell you what, get excited because that's where it started and that it's here. It's like happening. Yeah.
It's been a long journey for us. And we're going to talk about God's faithfulness through this journey. But yes, it's been an exciting journey. So let me kind of give an update on where we are with it. And then I want to let you talk, Aby, and kind of give us your feedback on the movie, what you thought, what you loved, what you didn't love, any of that stuff. Okay. But we now have a full movie and we're sending out these test screenings because we want people to see it and give us their feedback on this didn't make sense. This did make sense. This is my favorite part. This, needs some attention here. The music was terrible there, whatever it is. And then we have a few more steps to take to actually get it into people's hands. And we'll talk about that as well. But this has been more than 4.5 years in the making of making this movie. And when I say movie, it's so funny because some people will say, well, isn't it a documentary? Yes, a documentary is a movie also. So it is a feature length documentary all about
my kids said, is Yvette in it? And I said, yeah. And my son said, I didn't know she was an actress. And I said, well, honey, it's a documentary. So we had to discuss that it is a movie, but it is a documentary.
Yeah. I am not
acting.
I am not acting, though I do have an IMDb page now because of this movie, which is kind of funny.
Cool.
I know. So no, I am not an actress by any means, though I did act in my senior play in high school. So does that count?
Oh, I'm going to tell him you're an actress.
I was like the lead in my senior play.
It was so funny because as my kids, and we can talk more, but as my kids were watching it, because we sat down and watched it as a family, And they were like, I know that person. I know that person. Oh my gosh. And then they would see your kids. And it was a lot of fun to watch as a family.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, okay, Aby, let's roll into this. I want you to tell me, we sent it to you. We sent you the link and we were like, okay, here we go. And kind of holding our breath as we did that. Tell us what you and your family thought. And I want you to give us your honest overview of the movie.
Okay. Well, you know me, I can't hold anything back. It's always honest. So, I was, first of all, when you guys said it's coming, I was like, it's like here, like we really get to watch this because we've walked this journey with your family for quite a few years now.
Yeah.
I was just thinking it was 2 years ago that you came to visit us and then went up to Heidi's. So, and
I think it was a year before that we actually connected. So it's been
3 years. Yeah. And you were a year and a half into it. So it's been a long journey. So when it finally actually hit my computer, it was the most surreal thing. So we're in the middle of a hunting season and I'm like, I got to take this with me to hunting camp because we're recording next week and I don't have time to watch this at home. So we were so sad. I didn't have a way to charge my computer at hunting camp and my computer died. So we didn't get to watch it out there. We came home, we popped popcorn, we all sat down, we shut the blinds so people wouldn't interrupt us. And it was like my kids were just going nuts. They couldn't wait to watch it because they had been hearing about this. Like they've been knowing this is coming. Right. So they were over the top excited. And I honestly, if we're being raw, I was terrified because I was like, but I've seen all the trailers. I feel like I've seen so much of it just with trailers and clips and just knowing what's going to be in it. But then I was like, what if, because you guys are like, we need brutal honesty. And I was, what if there's a lot of stuff that I, think? And so I got out my notebook because you told me I want every little detail. And we turned it on and within 10 minutes, no, 20, I wrote down within the 20-minute mark, I had not written one thing, but I was crying my eyes out. It was like seeing the waters part. It was like seeing all of this effort, this energy, this call, this everything, all these miracles that God has brought you guys through, all these really hard times and these really incredible times. And there it was on my screen and it was so good. I mean, it was, and this is the thing, because I'm like, I'm not saying this just because I paid you to. Does not pay me. And side note, I have nothing to do with this movie. Like, this isn't like, I'm not a team on this movie. I'm not a part of this movie. I was just a friend that was watching this movie. And I'm also looking at it from the eyes of a homeschool mom. I'm looking at it through the eyes of a state representative for my homeschool. I'm looking at it through a co-op leader. I'm looking at it through the eyes of, I was trying to look at it through the eyes of a brand new homeschool mom, critic of homeschool. I was looking at it through all these eyes going, I have a feeling that this movie is going to be geared towards one type of person and I'm going to try to be that person. And it wasn't. It was like Jesse and I kept looking at each other going, oh my goodness. Like, this is for everyone. It's for the non-homeschooler. It's for the critic of homeschooling. It's for me, who I didn't really feel like I needed the encouragement because I'm encouraging. Because you give the encouragement. Right. And I was sitting there crying, feeling so encouraged and just empowered and part of something that was like, this is what we're doing. Like, this is why we're doing it. And it was incredible. And I can go into more details about what made it so incredible. But at the end, I had written very few notes and we just cried. And we paused it a few times because my kids just got so excited about just all sorts of things. But it was like I had to pause it and process just like the emotion and the power. And the way that Garrett put this thing together was just, it's like flawless. I mean, it's incredible. What I love is there's nothing it doesn't hit, because I kind of was wondering, like, what's the angle? There's other homeschool movies out there and I feel like they kind of have they hit one thing, but this hit the history of homeschool. It talked about what homeschool is. It exposed the truth of the alternative to what we're doing. it talked about just the homeschool movement in general, what we're supposed to be doing as homeschool parents. It talked about the importance of a biblical worldview. It hit all the key topics like how to be salt and light, and are our kids supposed to be salt and light, and are we sheltering our kids, and what if I'm not equipped as a mom, and then it hit all the but what about this, but what about that, but what about single moms, but what about, hit everything. And then it just talked about the future of homeschooling and what we can do to be a part of this movement. I mean, there's nothing that I could think about that I was left with a question of. It was incredible. I wanted to, like, now I'm kind of irritated that we have to wait, because I want to give these as gifts to every mom that I meet.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. And I can honestly say, Aby, and I'm certain, because I've heard Garrett say it a million times, it is not us that's done this. It has all been by the grace of God. We have so many stories of God's faithfulness and how he has brought this whole thing together, even with the cast, with just pulling a movie together is so much work, so much more than we ever anticipated it to be. You know, Garrett worked in the Hollywood film industry for many, many years. And so he knew he's trained in this. He knew what he was doing mostly, but he'd never made an entire movie by himself. And just like with homeschooling, you know, we sit back and we're like, well, I could never homeschool my kids. No, you're right. You can't homeschool your kids. You need God to help you get through this journey of homeschooling, of parenting, of being a wife and a mom, of all the things that we do in our lives. We need God's strength and his wisdom and his discernment and his power and his equipping. We need him to help us do everything to his glory. And it's no different with this movie. I mean, you know, you can kind of know how to do something, but there were so many obstacles that we overcame, but only because the Lord removed those obstacles, and he allowed us oftentimes through many struggles to get over them or get past them. And so it is only by his grace that we have gotten this far with the movie, and that we now have a complete movie to show people. Let's take a quick break, and we will be right back. Are you looking for a fantastic online math program that removes the burden of teaching math? Then Teaching Textbooks is for you. Our family's been using teaching textbooks for years, and we couldn't be happier. Our girls say that it makes learning math fun, like a game, and they love that it's interactive. Teaching Textbooks uses step-by-step video instruction and does all the grading for you. The newest version is available now with an app that even works offline. Sign up for the first 15 lessons for free at teachingtextbooks.com. That's teachingtextbooks.com. We are back with Aby, and before the break, we're talking about just God's faithfulness and getting us to this point of having a completed movie. I mean, that's craziness.
It is crazy. And as you said, it was only by the Lord's hand. And as we were watching that, I could see it and I could feel it, because to get as much information, encouragement, to equip people to do everything that was done in that movie could only be by the hand of God. And then what was incredible is it just flowed. It was not like I was sitting there watching a lesson on homeschool. It was like, it was fun to watch. I want to encourage everybody to, when I was thinking like, who is this movie for? Because you're sending it out to some people to watch, you know, right now. And I was thinking, you know, is this a movie that I would watch? I'm already homeschooling. I'm already sold out. I'm not questioning my decision. I don't need convinced. I already know what's happening in the world right now. Right. But like I said, as I was watching it, I just couldn't stop crying, because not only did it encourage me, and remind me what I'm doing, but it made me feel, sometimes as homeschool moms, we feel like we're alone and we're in this uphill battle, and we're always trying to defend what we're doing or give examples as to why we're doing it, or, you know, that we're kind of that. And it just made me feel not alone. Like, of course, this is why I'm doing this. Like, why wouldn't you do this? You know? And it was so good for me as an oldie, as a mom who's homeschooled from the beginning, to watch. But then I thought, if for the new mom who's getting ready to go down this road, who's absolutely terrified to homeschool her children, I can imagine that mom would walk away so encouraged, and just emboldened to do what we're called to do. I think it's for the critic. You know, I would give this to every critic I know, because I cannot imagine watching this film and at the end of it going, yeah, I still don't agree. I mean, at the end of this film, I can't imagine that anyone would think anything but answering the call to homeschool our kids is the right way to do it. And then what really surprised me too is how much I, at the end, went, every kid should watch this. Watching my kids watch this film, because I thought this is for parents. My kids got so much out of it because we just assume our kids get it. Like, we just assume they understand why we're doing what we're doing, what's going on in the schools. They just assume that they understand that, you know, all of it. And for my kids to watch it was so powerful, because I felt like they understood our and our kids have never questioned our decision, because I mean, they just don't.
It's all they know.
It's all they know. But for them to watch it, I mean, even my daughter, who's 13, was like, Mom, you should give this too. And she listed off some other parents' names. And it was so good for I mean, I would tell every parent, have your children watch this, because you want them as on board and to understand that this isn't just something we're doing like, hey, it's a hobby, we homeschool, but to really understand the depth and the reason and the why behind what we're doing. So that part really shocked me, as how there's not a person I can imagine that this movie isn't for. And how you guys pulled that together is nothing short but God's
a miracle.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, you know, what's so interesting for you to say that about your kids is that we had last week, we had one of my very closest friends here from California. We've been friends for years and years. And her daughter is the same age as Brooklyn, my oldest. They're both 15. And so we let them see a preview of the movie. And afterwards, her daughter commented to her and said, now I understand why you homeschool me.
See?
And then last night, right before I went to bed, I had sent it to another friend of ours, and she and her family watched it together. And afterwards, her daughter, who I think is 13, maybe 14, she said she literally got up and came and gave her a big, huge hug. And she said, Mom, thank you so much for homeschooling me. I would be lost if I were in public school. And and the thing is the movie is not, I mean, we do touch on what's happening in the public schools, because it's so funny. I actually was thinking about this because, you know, anytime you have a good story, there's always a villain, right? There's always the bad guy. And then you have the good guy who saves the world. Well, in this movie, the public school is the bad guy, really. I mean, the public school really is the villain. And you see why when you watch the movie. And it's not stuff we've made up. I mean, we actually put in the movie real, you know, news footage and stories and all kinds of things that are going on. And so that's the villain. And then the good guy is the homeschool mom, the homeschool dad, the homeschool parent who decides to take their kids out and save them from the world, you know?
Totally.
And so it was so cool it's cool to hear you talk about your kids and how excited they were about it. And I didn't expect that. That's not something that I even thought through, was that kids would watch it and go, wow, Mom, wow, Dad, thank you for homeschooling us.
We almost had our kids not watch it because I thought, oh, they're going to get, you know, but they wanted to because they know you guys, they love you guys. And our kids have been part of this journey as much as we have with you guys. You know, they know your girls, and they got such a kick out of watching your girls when they were little. They loved that. But then we were like, okay, the 7-year-old can go play, and the older, but my 7-year-old was glued to the TV. And it was so interesting. You know, my 13-year-old had one reaction, but then my youngest, she saw some of the footage and some of the reality that she necessarily doesn't know about because she's still pretty little. And it was like the lights went on to her, you know, because she doesn't really know there's that really another option, you know. And it was so powerful. And then for my husband, because I mean, it was just so neat to see all the different takeaways, and they really encourage dads in there, and just really, they, meaning you, it was just so powerful. This is not just for the homeschool mom. And in fact, this isn't just for the homeschool mom. This is for the homeschool dad. This is for children. This is for non-homeschoolers, for future homeschoolers, for grandparents, for public school teachers. That was another angle I looked, because I'm a previous public school teacher, and I was watching this going, I could not, even if I didn't have kids, be in the public schools right now. I mean, it was just, but then it touched on how that was so important too, to have godly men and women as adults in there. I mean, it was the most all-encompassing, well done, just had everything in it movie on homeschool that I've ever seen.
Wow.
And there are others out there.
Yeah. Well, that's so amazing. Powerful. all by God's grace. He has been so faithful to get us to this point. So let's close out this one. We're going to keep talking about this. We're going to come back on Wednesday and we're going to talk more about the movie, I want to give a little bit of detail on what's in the movie. Yeah. Because this is kind of a broad overview of why you liked the movie, which I'm so glad that you did. I think I told you this was probably about 3 weeks ago when we were just getting ready to start showing it to a few people. And I woke up one morning, it was probably about 4:00 in the morning, and I could not go back to sleep. And I woke up with all of the fears. And I just thought, what if people hate this movie? What if we've spent the last almost 5 years of our lives struggling to get this movie done, and people watch it and they're like, really, this is it? This is what we've been waiting for.
And then you told me about that dream before I'd watched it. And I was like, what if? Oh, great. I never even thought about that. What if I hate it?
Well, right. And then I told you, I said, what if the people who we love tell us what they know we want to hear? What if they say, oh, it's great. Yay. This is going to be a great movie and it's going to have a huge impact. And what if they're telling us that just because that's what we want and need to hear right now? Right. And not that it's about us, but I just all these fears kept creeping in. and I realized, and I think it was, because that's what you and I texted. I think it was the next day, and you were like, don't let Satan bring attacks on you this way, and I knew that, I knew Satan's going to do everything he can to attack us through this. And he does not want this movie to be out. He does not want parents to see this movie.
Because this movie will change lives. Guaranteed. It's not going to change lives. It's going to change families. And it's going to change our nation if families if families listen,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the movie is called Schoolhouse Rocked, the Homeschool Revolution. Yes. And at the very end of the movie, it says, join the revolution. And that's really what it is we need a revolution in this country. Yep. And it begins with families. It begins at home. It begins with parents taking back their kids and teaching them the truth of God's word. That's where it begins. We cannot have revival in this country. Nope. And we cannot, and it's not just about our country. It's about the hearts of our children. We cannot bring our children to where they need to be in relationship with the Lord when they're away from us for over 16,000 hours between kindergarten and 12th grade. And
I look at how we got here, and you know where they started? They started breaking down the family. We did not get to where we are as a nation just by anything other than they started breaking down the family. And I read something the other day and I loved, and they said, we wouldn't be where we're at if we had strong, godly men leading the home. Amen. And that is precisely why the first thing that the enemy went after was masculinity. The first thing the enemy went after was manhood. Yeah. And that started a long time ago when women would rise up and try to take the role of a man. And then we lost our footing in the family. We didn't have strong men. Women rose up to replace that and so it started with the breakdown of the family. And the only way we're going to get it back is to allow God back into the family and to turn the family around. And that's it. That's our only hope is to put God back at the head of the home and then follow the order thereafter.
Right. And no one else is going to do that. Not a public school teacher, not a private school teacher. No one else can do that for your family, but you and your husband. So, okay. Well, we're out of time. We'll be back on Wednesday. We're going to keep talking about this. You guys, if you have not signed up for the newsletter, sign up at schoolhouserocked.com. Make sure you are in the loop and know what's going on with the movie. We cannot wait to get this into your hands. We still have a few really important steps to take. And in order to take those steps, we are really in need of financial support. The movie is done now. But we have what we have left to do actually is color correction. We have some of the music, which for those of you who see it, you'll see that there's music in it, but we need to have some of that music changed because it's just, some of it is kind of stock music, but most of it actually Garrett did, and it's fantastic. But we need to have music done, color, and then we have to do post-production and get it ready for distribution. And that all is stuff that I can't even go into detail because I don't even understand all of that side of post-production, but we still have quite a ways to go. And I don't mean another year to go. I mean, we have a couple of big steps that will be taken very quickly to get this into people's hands, but we really are in need of financial support. We're in need of prayer. We are just in need of people to share this movie. So share it on your social media. We will put links to the trailers in the show notes. So if you could just go in and grab one of those links And if you haven't watched the trailer yet, watch it and then share it on your social media and let people know this movie's coming and that you're excited about it, and encourage them to sign up for the newsletter. So if you can do those things, that would be a huge blessing to us. Financial support, prayer, sign up for the newsletter, share it on social media. That is what we need from you guys, our listeners, today. So thank you guys for listening. We'll be back on Wednesday. Come back then and hear more about what we're doing. And we will see you guys then. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.